Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel, where my objective is to share knowledge and information about Alzheimer's disease in a way which I hope feels empowering and optimistic, because only in this manner we can gather the required energy and have the right mindset to prevent and fight Alzheimer's for ourselves and for our loved ones. In this mini series of videos, I would like to talk about the Alzheimer's diagnosis, how important it is to have an accurate diagnosis as early as possible, and also what differentiates Alzheimer's from other types of dementia. Specifically in this video, I would like to offer 3 questions that families and caregivers should feel empowered to ask the doctor who is making a diagnosis for their loved one. And I would like to clarify from the outset that I'm not a doctor, but I am a former caregiver for my mother, and having gone through this process of ensuring my mother gets a correct diagnosis, I believe that there are certain questions that us as caregivers we need to ask, and we need to have a satisfactory response. And the first question is, what type of dementia does my loved one have? And I would like to emphasize that dementia is an umbrella term. It's not a diagnosis, and therefore there cannot be accompanied by a specific medication. Under this umbrella term, we have Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia. We have vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, and several subtypes of these dementia forms. And when doctors are using the cognitive tests, for example, the mini mental state examination and the Montreal cognitive assessment test, sometimes it's difficult to differentiate between Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, because this test will tell the doctor if the patient has memory impairment issues, speech impairment issues, difficulties in executive functions and planning, or behavioral issues. But all of these are also symptoms of other forms of dementia, and it can be very challenging to differentiate between them only based on cognitive tests. Therefore, the second question that families and caregivers should be asking the doctor is, what are all the tests available that can be run in order to make a precise diagnosis for my loved one? And here I would like to start with the SPECT scan. And you may have heard of Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a renowned psychiatrist in the United States, and he has introduced the SPECT scans as being absolutely invaluable and mandatory for making a correct diagnosis in psychiatry, because a SPECT scan looks at how the brain is working. It measures blood flow and activity compared to an MRI, which looks at the brain structure, whereas an MRI will be able to tell if there is a tumor or a clot, or certain areas of the brain are larger than they should be. It's only the SPECT scan that in the initial stage of Alzheimer's can detect a certain signature of blood flow, which is indicative of Alzheimer's disease. So you need to ask the doctor about a SPECT scan. In addition to the SPECT scan, we now have an Alzheimer's blood test, which can be used in the diagnosis process. The blood test is called Precivity AD. It is available now also in Europe, not just in the United States. It costs around $1,000. I don't believe it is reimbursed in any country, but it's absolutely worth it, because it's able to detect the abnormal accumulation of the beta amyloid protein, the protein which is believed by scientists to cause the atrophy in Alzheimer's disease. And moving to the third question, because doctors cannot stop here. Even if the SPECT scan and the blood test and the cognitive tests are indicative of Alzheimer's disease, we cannot stop here. We need to identify the root causes of Alzheimer's, the root causes of neurodegeneration. Therefore, the third question that we need to ask is, what are the other tests that can be run in order to determine, to identify the root causes of the disease? And here doctors need to have a long conversation and to spend some time with the patient, to become familiar with their medical history, to ask the patient if they suffer from type 2 diabetes, if they sustained at some point in their lives a traumatic brain injury, if they have cardiovascular disease, if they have a chronic infection, what are their inflammatory levels, what are their vitamin D levels, what are their omega-3 levels. So lots of questions which can indicate the tests that need to be made in order to identify the root causes of Alzheimer's disease. So this is what I wanted to share in this video. In the next videos, I will start talking about the differences between Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, and I'll see you then. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.